the land here. That used to be called Sanderson Cove when you cross the bridge down there. And the SMM farm, current SMM farm, is likely part of those 400 acres that Dr. Tate farmed. So given these two discoveries, we decided we need a way of getting the information out. So we wrote an article in the Clay County Progress, and we held a dedication ceremony at the cemetery. Before the cemetery, we started to do research on Clay County's African American heritage, and we were stymied because there wasn't any. There wasn't any written documentation on the history of our African Americans in Clay County until a woman named Debbie Jo Ferguson in 1994, a historical society was making a Clay County Heritage book where they asked the citizens to write stories about their families and their ancestors, and they published those as a means of capturing that history. Debbie Jo Ferguson noticed in a review of that book that there was no heritage articles on our African Americans. So she went out and she interviewed the elders of our African American community, and she wrote stories about their stories, and she compiled a list of all the African American servicemen and from World War I up to the Gulf War, and included those in her article and in that magazine. But that was it for information. And her stories were mostly stories. And so we really lacked definitive information to put together and exhibit our museum. And that then led to discovery number 3. During the February 2016 dedication ceremony for Slave Cemetery, Ann Miller Woodford, who is here with us today, presented a good talk, and then we learned about her book. She wrote a book called When All God's Children Get Together. And it was a history of the African American communities in western North Carolina. She talked about their religion, their schoolings, their churches, their songs, and much, much more. And she had many of those articles, like Debbie Jo Ferguson had, where she published the memories of the elders. And we were really excited to find that book because that gave us enough information to put together the story for our museum.
Amen.
And we're very grateful to Ann, because I went to meet with Ann, and she says, "Oh, I'll help you all I can." And she became my mentor in getting this stuff done. So Ann, thank you very much. Discovery number 4 was the discovery of a name of the slave that was born on the Tate farm. When you look at census data from the 1840s, 1850, 1860, you'll see the census taker would go into a property and they'd interview the head of the household, and they'd write down all the names and the relationships of the people in that household. Of the white people in that household, the slaves didn't have names. They had a different schedule, the slave schedule, where they would list the slaves by their age, their gender, and their color. Their names were never recorded. In Carl Moore's history book of Clay County that he wrote in 2007, he had a photocopy of a drawing of a slave cabin, and it was captioned, "This is a cabin in which I lived when a slave in Clay County, North Carolina." And it had initials down in the lower right-hand corner, HWT. So I said, "Oh man, this is really great. We got to get the original of this thing to put it in the museum." So I called Carl and asked him where he got it. And he said, "Well, I think I got it in the library. So I went to the library and asked the